parents didn't want to see me with my children at Thanksgiving. "Your sister's children shouldn't see losers like you," my dad shouted loudly. I said I stop helping with money, and your sister's kids shouldn't see losers like you. My father's voice echoed through the house, loud enough to make the entire room tense. I stood there for a second, stunned. Did I really just hear that? I wasn't even sure how it had come to this. It was supposed to be a normal Thanksgiving, or as normal as it could be in my family, but this year was different. My sister Emily was visiting from Switzerland after 7 years, and you'd think she was royalty from the way my parents acted. Everything had to be perfect for her and her 2 golden children, Lily and Jack. I'd never seen Emily's children in person. Over the years, I'd heard all about them through endless phone calls and updates. There were apparently straight-A students who spoke 3 languages, excelled in music, and somehow had never thrown a temper tantrum in their lives. My parents talked as if they were walking miracles. Meanwhile, my own 2 children, Ben and Sophie, were apparently inferior by comparison. Never mind that Ben had made his school's soccer team last month, or that Sophie had won a state spelling bee last year. When I first arrived with my kids, my parents actually let us in for a while. It almost seemed like we were going to have a good time. But the good vibes didn't last. As soon as Emily and her family walked in, the comparisons began. "Look at Emily." My mother gushed to no one in particular. "She's done so well for herself." "Yes," Dad added, his voice full of pride. "A nice house in Geneva, a great job, smart kids, all set, not like some people." I didn't need an interpreter to know who he meant. The rest of the evening felt like a long, drawn-out roast disguised as small talk. Every time I tried to bring up something about my own life or my kids, my parents shot me down. "Ben made the soccer team," I mentioned in passing. "Oh, that's nice," Mom replied, clearly uninterested. "Did you know Lily got invited to a soccer camp in Barcelona? They called it a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity." By the time we sat down to dinner, my blood was boiling, but I kept my mouth shut. I didn't want to ruin Thanksgiving for my kids. I thought maybe if I stayed calm, it would all blow over. Then Dad dropped the bomb. "Chris," he said suddenly, his tone harsh and direct. "We've talked, and we think it's better if you leave." "What?" I blinked in disbelief. "We just don't want Emily's children around certain influences," he said, waving his hand vaguely in my direction. "You understand, we're trying to keep things positive today." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My own father was kicking me out of Thanksgiving because my kids and I weren't good enough for his precious little reunion. I looked at my mother, expecting her to intervene, but she just gave me a dismissive look. "Go away," she said. "Don't waste our time." And that was it. Something inside me snapped. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just calmly said, "Fine. But if that's how you feel, don't expect me to help you anymore." "What's that supposed to mean?" Dad asked, frowning. "I've been paying your bills, Dad," I said flatly. "Electricity, internet, that joint account. You think your golden child is going to take care of you? Good luck with that." He scoffed. "We'll be fine without your charity." "All right, we'll see." Without another word, I grabbed my children and walked out of the house. The cold November air hit my face as we walked, but I felt strangely at peace. I knew exactly what I was going to do next. I didn't say much on the drive home. Ben and Sophie were unusually quiet in the back seat, probably sensing my mood. They're good kids like that, more observant than people give them credit for. Sophie finally broke the silence. "Are we going back for dessert?" "No, honey," I said, keeping my eyes on the road. "We're not going back." She didn't ask any more questions after that. The minute we got home, I went straight to my computer and started unplugging everything. The first thing I did was cancel her automatic bill payments. No more covering her utilities, no more surprise food reimbursements or medical co-pays. That joint account closed. I transferred out every last dime I'd put in, leaving only the scraps my parents had put in themselves. When I was done, I felt a strange mixture of relief and anger. I'd supported my parents financially for years without so much as a thank you. It was my way of trying to earn their approval, even after everything, but tonight was the last straw. A week passed, then two. No calls, no texts. I thought maybe they were still riding the high of Emily's visit. They probably convinced themselves they were better off without me. That was fine. I wasn't in any hurry to hear from them anyway. But then something unexpected happened. It was a Monday morning, and I had just dropped the kids off at school when my phone buzzed. It was a message from Emily, of all people. "Can you talk?" it said. Emily and I didn't have a warm relationship. We weren't hostile, but we weren't close either. Still, I was curious, so I called her back. She picked up after the first ring. "Chris, I need to tell you something," she said, her voice low, as if she didn't want anyone to overhear. "Okay," I replied, bracing myself for whatever drama was about to unfold. "Look, I know things got ugly at Thanksgiving," she began. "I didn't know they were going to kick you out like that. I swear I wasn't part of it, right?" I said, not bothering to hide my skepticism. "I'm serious," she insisted. "But that's not why I'm calling. Something's going on with Mom and Dad." My interest was piqued. "What do you mean?" "They've been calling me nonstop, asking for money," she said. "I guess they thought I'd step in and pay their bills after you quit." I couldn't help but laugh. "Yeah, that sounds about right. So, what's the problem? You're rich, right? Shouldn't be a big deal for you." She hesitated, and I knew something was wrong. "I can't," she finally admitted. "Things aren't as great as they seem." Now, that was a shocker. Emily had always painted this picture of a perfect life overseas. Big house, fancy job, perfect marriage. But listening to her now, it sounded like the cracks were starting to show. "What's going on, Emily?" I pressed. There was a long pause. "My husband and I are separating," she confessed. "He's been draining our accounts for months. I didn't realize how bad it was until recently. I'm in debt. Chris, I can't get out of it." This was not what I expected at all. Emily, the golden child, was struggling just as much as I was, maybe worse. "So what are you going to do?" I asked. "I don't know," she said quietly. "But I thought you should know. Mom and Dad, they're not doing well. They won't admit it. But they need help." "Yeah. Well, they didn't seem too interested in my help when they kicked me out," I pointed out. "I get it," she said. "They were horrible to you. But they're still our parents. Isail." Part of me wanted to tell her to get lost, let our parents deal with their own mess for once. But another part of me, maybe the part that still craved their approval, wasn't sure I could walk away completely. "Let me think about it," I finally said. "Thank you, Chris," she replied quietly. "And I'm sorry for everything." We hung up, and I sat there for a moment, taking it all in. This wasn't how I expected it to go. Emily's perfect life was falling apart. Our parents were in over their heads, and now I had to make a choice. Would I let them sink, or throw them a lifeline? But fate had more surprises in store. A few more weeks passed, and my parents still hadn't reached out. I figured pride was keeping them quiet. Meanwhile, Emily had gone radio silent too. I was starting to think maybe things were settling down when, out of nowhere, I got a call from Dad. "Chris." I paused for a moment. He never called me, unless he needed something. I was tempted to let it go to voicemail, but decided I'd hear him out. "What's up?" I said, keeping my tone neutral. There was a long sigh on the other end. "We need to talk." "Talk about what?" I asked. "Look, your mother and I might have said some things we didn't mean. It's been a tough few weeks." Okay, there it was. The beginning of an apology, but I wasn't about to make it easy for him. Tough few weeks, huh? How's Emily doing? She covering the bills for you guys like you expected? Dad went quiet for a moment, and I could tell I'd hit a nerve. Emily's having some issues, he admitted. Her husband left her, took a lot of their money. She's not in a position to help right now. And you thought you could just pick up the phone and call me after what you said at Thanksgiving? I asked. You told me to leave because I wasn't good enough to be around Emily's kids. Now you want my help? Chris, we're your parents, he said, like that was supposed to erase everything. Yeah, you made that real clear. When you chose Emily's perfect little life over me and my kids, I shot back. So no, I'm not interested. I was about to hang up when Dad blurted out something that stopped me cold. Your sister stole from us, he said. What? Emily? He repeated, his voice shaking with frustration. She drained what was left of our savings and took off. We think she's gone back to Europe. She didn't even tell us. I blinked, trying to process what he just said. Emily had stolen their money? That didn't make sense. She wasn't that kind of person. At least, not the version of her I thought I knew. Why would she do that? I asked slowly. She said she needed it to pay off debts, Dad explained. We gave her access to our accounts because we thought she'd help manage things while she was visiting. Next thing we know, she's gone. I leaned back in my chair, stunned. So you're telling me that your golden child, the one you put on a pedestal for years, screwed you over and disappeared? Dad didn't answer right away. I could almost hear the shame in his silence. Chris, we're in trouble, he finally said. The mortgage is overdue. We're behind on utilities. I don't know what to do. I couldn't believe the irony of it all. The same parents who had humiliated me on Thanksgiving were now practically begging for my help because their favorite had stabbed them in the back. You really think I'm going to swoop in and save you after everything you said to me? I asked. I'm not asking you to save us, he said quietly. Just help us figure things out. I sighed and rubbed my temples. Part of me wanted to tell him to deal with it on his own, but then I thought about Ben and Sophie. I didn't want them to see me as someone who held grudges forever. Fine, I said. I'll think about it, but I'm not promising anything. Thank you, son, Dad said, sounding genuinely relieved. We appreciate it. After I hung up, I couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was at play. Emily stealing from our parents didn't add up. There had to be more to the story, and if I was going to help, I needed to get to the bottom of it first. Little did I know, this rabbit hole was about to go deeper than I ever expected. After Dad's call, I couldn't stop thinking about Emily stealing from our parents, running off to Europe. It didn't fit the image I had of her. I'm sure she'd always been a bit self-centered, but a thief? No way. Something didn't sit right. I decided to find out for myself what the hell was going on. I texted her. Me. Hey, can we talk? Emily. Not right now, traveling. That was it. No explanation. No follow-up. Suspicious. I dug around a bit, scrolling through social media. Her account, which was usually flooded with photos of fancy vacations and her perfect family, hadn't been updated in over a month. The last post was a blurry shot of her kids in a park, nothing like her usual curated stuff. I made another call, this time to a friend of hers, Carla, who still lived in the States. Carla was chatty and always in the loop. Oh, Emily? Yeah, things have been rough for her lately, Carla said after I mentioned I couldn't reach my sister. Rough how? I asked. Well, her husband cheated on her, for one, with some coworker, real scandal, and I heard she's been in deep with debt collectors. A few people mentioned she borrowed a ton of money to expand her investments, but it all went south. Investments? That was news to me. Emily never mentioned anything about investments. Do you know where she is now? Not really. She said something about going back to Europe for a while. She's probably trying to lie low until things blow over, Carla said casually. Like that wasn't a bombshell. Lie low? This didn't sound like Emily at all. The picture was getting messier by the minute. I thanked Carla and hung up. That evening, I told Ben and Sophie we were going on a short road trip the next day. They were curious but didn't ask too many questions. I packed the car and drove them to a nearby town where my parents had a vacation property, a small lake house they rarely used. I had a feeling that if Emily was still in the country, she might be hiding out there. When we pulled up to the house, it looked quiet, almost abandoned, but there was a car in the driveway, Emily's car. "Stay in the car," I told the kids. I walked up to the front door and knocked. No answer. I knocked again, harder this time. Finally, I heard footsteps inside. The door opened a crack, and there she was, Emily, looking exhausted and disheveled. "Chris," she said, eyes wide with surprise. "Mind explaining what's going on?" I asked, crossing my arms. She sighed and stepped back to let me in. The inside of the house was a mess. Clothes and papers scattered everywhere. It looked like she'd been living out of a suitcase. "I didn't steal from them," she said before I could even ask. "Dad says otherwise," I replied. "They gave me access to the account," she insisted. "I told them I needed help to pay off some debts, and they agreed. But when things got worse, they freaked out and accused me of stealing." "Why didn't you tell me any of this?" "Because I knew you'd think the worst too," she said, slumping onto the couch. "Everyone always expects me to have it all together. I didn't want you to see me like this." I sat down across from her, trying to process everything. "So what's the plan? Run away to Europe and hope nobody notices?" "I'm not running," she said firmly. "I just needed a break to figure things out. I was going to pay Mom and Dad back once I sorted my finances, but now they're making it sound like I robbed them blind." This was a lot to take in. On one hand, I understood why my parents were panicking. They had no clue how to handle their own finances. On the other hand, Emily wasn't the villain they were making her out to be. "You need to talk to them," I said. "And say what? That I screwed up? They'll never let me live it down?" she muttered. "Well, welcome to the club," I said with a bitter laugh. "They've been treating me like a failure for years. Maybe now you'll see what it's like on the other side." Emily looked at me, and for the first time in a long while, there was a hint of vulnerability in her eyes. "I guess I deserve that," she said quietly. "Maybe," I replied. "But if you want any chance of fixing this, you need to face them. And I'm not cleaning up your mess for you." She nodded slowly. "Okay, I'll talk to them. But will you come with me? I could use some backup." I hesitated. Part of me wanted to say no, to let her deal with the fallout on her own, but another part of me knew this was bigger than just her. If we didn't handle this together, our whole family would stay broken. "Fine," I said, "but you're leading the conversation. I'm not taking the heat for you." "To deal?" she said with a weak smile. This wasn't the outcome I expected, but it felt like a step in the right direction. What came next, though, would test all of us in ways I wasn't prepared for. Emily kept her word and met with our parents the next day. I didn't go in with her. I stayed outside in the car with Ben and Sophie. I figured it was her battle to fight. When she finally came back out, she looked relieved, but also distant. "How'd it go?" I asked. "They're upset, obviously," she said. But I told them the truth. I told them I can't bail them out anymore. They didn't take it well. I nodded. "Yeah, that sounds about right." "They tried to guilt me," she continued, talking about how they raised us, how much they sacrificed. "But I'm done, Chris. I can't keep pretending I have it all together just to make them happy." For a moment, we sat there in silence. It felt like a shift, like the weight of years of expectations had finally been lifted. "What's next for you?" I asked. "I'm going back to Europe," she said quietly. "I need a fresh start. I'm taking the kids with me. I'll stay in touch with you, though. I mean it." I wanted to believe her, but something in her tone told me this was goodbye, at least for a while, and honestly, I didn't blame her. We both needed space from the mess our parents had created. "I hope it works out," I said. "You too," she replied. "Take care of yourself, and thanks for not giving up on me." With that, she drove off, And I had a feeling I wouldn't hear from her again anytime soon. Over the next few months, things with my parents unraveled even more. They called a few times, leaving desperate voicemails. Chris, we're behind on the mortgage again. Chris, your mother's medical bills are piling up. Chris, can you at least help with the electric bill? But I didn't answer. I knew the truth now. They didn't want me. They wanted my money. And after years of bending over backward to please them, I was done. Instead of feeling guilty, I felt free. I focused on my kids, my career, and rebuilding my life on my own terms. We found new traditions for Thanksgiving and holidays, making memories without the constant pressure of family drama. As for my parents, they eventually found a way to manage. Turns out, when people stop having a financial safety net, they figure things out pretty fast. My dad even sold one of his properties to cover the debt. They didn't need me. They never did. They just needed someone to use. And now that I was out of the equation, they were finally forced to take responsibility for themselves. Revenge wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet, simple. I stopped giving, and they stopped taking. And for the first time in years, I felt at peace.